About this book. Have you ever listened to a podcast on iTunes or elsewhere and thought, I can do that? The truth is, you could do that. It's much easier than you might imagine. A successful podcast can easily reach many thousands and thousands of people, sometimes hundreds of thousands, and is an incredible way on which to build a business or augment an existing one. You can create a podcast on almost any topic and have it to be successful. The internet is a very, very large place, and if your podcast is well designed, you will attract a large audience. Perhaps your interest is in politics, religion, business, health, or even a hobby such as fine wine. You can easily create a podcast on that topic and make money from home. Podcasting for dollars takes you through the process of selecting the right equipment and software, setting it up, and making it go in your first podcast. You'll learn how to market your podcast, how to gain followers, and how to make money from your podcast. It's much easier than you could ever imagine, which is why the industry is growing so quickly. In this book, you will learn what is the best kind of microphone for your podcast, what kind of computer you would need for your podcast, the best recording software for your podcast, how to create an RSS feed for your podcast, where to upload your podcast for maximum exposure, how to earn money from your podcast. Introduction. I am sure that this is by no means the first time you are hearing of the word podcasting. If you have been around for a bit, i.e. assuming you are not below teenage, you have at one point of the other listened to a podcast either knowingly or unknowingly. If we were to step into a time machine and go back a couple of years when the internet was the new kid on the block, we would see that the free and liberal internet we have today is a towering master of the internet shadow that was. Are you wondering how this relates to podcasting for either fun or money? Well, in the early and not so early days of the web and content development, search engine optimization, and online money, very few options of making money online were available to netpreneurs. Today, that has changed a lot. While the traditional ways of making money such as blogging are still viable today, and still look viable in the near future, internet marketers and internet enthusiasts are always on the lookout for new and better ways to make money or interact with their followers or the millions of people using technology to learn new and exciting stuff. While podcasting is not new per se, more and more people are coming to the realization that not only is podcasting a good way to make some money, it is also an ideal way to create and cement a personal relationship between the person listening to the podcast and the one making the podcast. This is the best time to get started in podcasting. If you are new to podcasting and want to master the ins and outs of podcasting, this book will help you get started. There is a lot to learn, so let's get started. Understanding podcasting and how it works. As I indicated earlier, I am sure that this is not your first contact with the term podcast or podcasting. However, it may come as a surprise to many people to learn that despite being a popular word, very few people have the true meaning of what podcasting is or how it works. Technically, a podcast is a digital, RSS 2.0 feed downloadable file. The media file of a podcast can be any type. Essentially, sharing a podcast requires the web address of the media file to be included in the RSS feed in an enclosure tag of an XML file. While I said that a podcast media file could be of any type, it is important to note that most of the aggregators identify and play specific media files only. In most cases and more often than not, a podcast is an audio, video, or both. A podcast may sound like an online streaming radio, but is indeed not. For one, a podcast is a non-streamed audio or video, which means you do not watch the files online. Instead, you download them and watch or listen to them on your MP3 player, smartphone, or video player. Podcasts are oftentimes free unless the creator states a buying price. Essentially, a podcast allows you to get a variety of songs and video that you can download to your player and listen at your convenience. Another not-so-complicated way of looking at podcasting or a podcast is to imagine it as your own personal radio channel or radio station on a mobile device or MP3 player. The fun thing about a podcast and, in extension, podcasting is that you do not need a broadcasting degree to do it. With technology all around us, anyone, including you, can create and publish a podcast on the internet in a matter of minutes, literally. If you have been keen with everything so far, you may be wondering if there is a difference between a podcast and downloading music or videos from the many sites available on the internet. There is a difference, a very big one. While you may be required to push a few buttons on your keyboard and a few clicks on your mouse to download a video or audio music, getting a new podcast is not so overly complicated. When a user subscribes to a podcast, they need not do anything else. Any new podcast published on that channel will automatically be synchronized with all connected devices. Essentially, all you need to receive a podcast and future podcasts from a specific podcast is to subscribe to that specific podcast, and everything else happens automatically. You may also be curious about how podcasting works. Let me explain how it works. How podcasting works. As earlier indicated, podcasts go through an RSS 2.0 feed. The owner of the podcast embeds the file in the RSS feed and uploads it to a podcasting website. The embedded RSS feed contains the URL for the media file, video or audio, and whenever a new user subscribes to the podcast, they automatically get the latest podcast. 4. Any user to subscribe to a podcasting service, they require a podcast aggregator or podcatcher software. Using the software, a user can subscribe to any podcast service. The software then regularly checks for feeds and podcast updates just like a normal RSS reader would. With that in mind, you may be wondering why you should even think of trying podcasting in the first place. Just to give you some motivation to get started, let's discuss why you should try podcasting. Reasons why you should create a podcast. For a minute, think of traditional media as a tether holding back your creativity and explosively intuitive voice and advice. Now, without vacating this frame of mind, think of podcasting as an Old West, sharp, shaving knife or a pair of sharp scissors, cutting the tether, letting your imagination roam free, and letting your vocal and video ideas and talents burst at the seams. Podcasting is the medium you need to share your creativity, thoughts, opinions, advice, music, and whatever else you can create, be it for fun or for some money. Podcasting offers you and other podcasters limitless possibilities to express yourself and voice your ideas and opinions. Podcasting allows you to Host your very own show or promote products and services. Further, podcasting can give you a platform to give your expertise a voice for more and better recognition in your field of work or study. This coupled with the fact that podcasting is a fun way to interact and connect with other people forms part of the reason why you should care about podcasting. As topping on the above reasons, here are 7 more reasons why you should create your own podcast.